Hey folks, welcome to another Triple T Thursday. For those just joining us, that's Tools, Tips, and Talk, where we'll discuss info for the knife maker. Today, we're going to build a surface grinding attachment for our 2x72. Yes, I already have one of these, but I'm going to show you guys how to build one for less than half what it would cost you to buy one. Let's go take a look. So this is the surface grinding attachment that I'm referring to. This has got a tooling arm that would go inside the tool slot in your 2x72 grinder. It's got a wheel that the belt's going to go around, and then it's got a magnetic chuck that you'd put your work against that will then slide against the belt, and there is this cross slide here that will bring this up and down. So we're going to be building one of these today. For the most part, just basic tools. Where it's going to get a little more complicated and require a little more advanced tools is making the magnetic chuck. But stay tuned till the end. I've got some options for you for these. So how are we going to build this? This is how we're going to build it. So I've got some aluminum, some 1.5 by 2 inch aluminum for the chuck. We've got some aluminum that's going to hold our cross slide and get attached to the tool arm. This time I bought a 6-inch wheel. We got our cross slide. We have our linear rail, and this comes with it. This is the rail that goes through, and then all of the hardware and a little bit of Loctite. So I'm going to take you through every step of this. All of this stuff is purchased. There's links down in the description for all of this, so stay tuned. Let's build it. Okay, step one is going to be to attach the wheel to your tool arm. And you notice I didn't discuss tool arms because I'm not exactly sure what kind of grinder you have. I have a broadback, so it uses these very square aluminum 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch tool arms. If you're using something like a Revolution that uses tube steel, then get yourself a piece of tube steel. Basically, you want 2 holes. They don't need to be exact. I think these are about 1.5 inches off center. One for the wheel and then one just as another attachment here. So I'm going to put this into the tool arm holder. Okay. Now I've got my wheel. The wheel I've selected is actually a 6-inch wheel this time. I'm going to put, this is the 6-inch half-inch bolt. Now what you want is, and I've left my platen here, you can see. What I want is I want the wheel to be at about the same place. So first thing, you're going to use one of the small washers just so that it's offset here and it doesn't touch on both, just so it spins nicely. And then enough of these thick washers just to offset it. So I'm going to need a couple of more. So I'm going to add a couple of more washers. Okay, so this is 3 more washers. That's about perfect. Okay, so we're pretty much ready. We still need to put the actual plate on the other side that's going to hold our slide. So we're not actually going to bolt this in yet. We just wanted to get this measured. Next step, we're going to work on the cross slide and the attachment to the bar. So this cross slide, you just move this across. This is what's going to slide the mag chuck towards the belt. So it's already got a bunch of holes here. We're going to put hole here, and you have to kind of wind it apart. Let's just put it in the middle so we can access all those holes. So what I'm going to do is just kind of get it centered. It's flush with the end of this piece of aluminum. And then I'm just going to take a clamp. I'm going to clamp this down. Then I'm going to go over the drill press and drill through all 4 of those holes. Okay, so I've got these sitting on 1, 2, 3 blocks just to keep it nice and even. 1/4 inch drill bit. Now I'm going to drill through those holes. Okay, we got all our holes drilled. Now we're going to take these pan head 1/4 bolts, slide them in here, and of course the heads are not going to go down far enough. So what we're going to do is just put these in a hand drill. We're going to go to the grinder and just grind off a bit of that radius just so they fit down into that hole and we have clearance for the slide. So I've got the cross slide kind of loosely mounted. Now we're going to take our rail guide and we're just going to kind of put it about there and just hold it. What we're trying to do is align where the hole for the wheel should go. We want this wheel to overhang this section right here by about a 1/4 inch. Okay, because that's as far as it can go. We want as much travel as we can get in case we do really thick bars. So when we think it's about at least a 1/4 inch past there, then what I would do is kind of mark this. So now we know our hole is going to go right in the center of where we marked. So we're going to put a hole right there. I'll just center punch that, and I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch hole to match that. I've drilled that hole. I just put a bolt through it just so that I can pass the drill through this one and get the exact same hole. It doesn't matter how far away these bolts are. You need just 2 to secure it. There, I've just cut those holes. Now we can actually cut this piece because we know how much of this piece of aluminum we need. Easiest way to cut aluminum is with a table saw, believe it or not, so that's what we're going to do. It does like to kick little pieces of aluminum everywhere, so definitely wear your safety protection when you do this. Okay, so I've loose fit up everything again, and now I'm just going to show you where, this is where the cross slide is going to be. Now, I don't know if you guys can see it, but the top of this, let me see if I can change the angle. The top of this is not in line with this wheel here. It's proud by about 1/4 inch. So what we're going to do now, we have this wheel aligned. So we don't want to take this out of alignment to the bar. So what we're going to do is take a shim like this and put it between this bar and this plate. I happen to have one that fits this exactly. If you don't, obviously you're just going to match it, you know, match the holes and create a little plate. You could also do it with washers too. So that was just a little too much. I'm probably going to end up just grinding this down until I get the right thickness and these things meet up perfectly. So the next step here is to attach the rail onto our cross slide. Unfortunately, these holes don't line up with these holes. And we need to get this to mount on here. And we don't want to drill into this, so we want these holes to be put on here. So what I've done is I've gone and I've just marked, kind of eyeballed where the first hole will go. Okay, and we don't need, these are threaded here, but we don't need these threaded because these are. So I'm just going to drill a 1/4 inch hole. These are actually metric M8. Sorry, those are the wrong ones. These M8 bolts that go through here. So we're going to drill 1/4 inch through here so that they'll pass through, and then we're going to countersink the head here so that it's flush and we don't get any travel issues. We're going to just measure the other holes from this hole. And again, these are 1/4 inch, which are a little bigger than M8, so we'll have a little bit of play, but they'll tighten down nicely. Let's go drill that. Okay, I've drilled all the holes, all the screws fit. Now we just need to countersink them. We might have to just spin these in the drill again, the heads, and countersink those holes. Alright, so we got a 3/8 bit. I'm just going to go and widen all these holes so we can fit our bolt heads. Okay, so we got it all set up, screwed in nice and tight. Our cross slide moves in and out. It's nice and smooth. Now we're going to turn our attention to the mag chuck. So here's the rail. Here's a big chunk of 1.5 by 2 inch aluminum, and this is going to just go on here, kind of flush with this side, and then the whole rail is going to be sliding it back and forth. So all we need to do is flip this over. Okay, there's already holes drilled in this. For a 12-inch mag chuck, 3 holes is fine, and then put it in the center. The reason that I'm actually doing a new build here is I want an 18-inch chuck. I find that the 12-inch is a bit small for some of the larger knives that I do, so I want to put an 18-inch chuck in. So I'm still only going to use 3 of the holes, probably these 2, and then a final one at the end. So up till now, it's just been drilling, a little bit of grinding, really minor stuff, really simple stuff anybody can do with really simple tools. Obviously you have a 2x72 or you wouldn't be doing this. Now we need to get into using a mill. Okay, so you need to use a mill to cut the slots for the magnets that we're going to place in here. Now, could you do it without a mill? Maybe. It sounds like hours and hours of grief with a file, just not something I would recommend. But the other reason I'm doing this video is I will be offering pre-made magnetic chucks on my website. So you can just buy them done, milled magnets. They're relatively cheap. Check my website for pricing. And then you could just drop them in. They're made to fit on these rails in these holes. And they will come pre-drilled with the holes that match these. So, if you don't have a mill, go to my website, just pick one of these up and buy it. But for those that do have a mill, we're going to show you how to get this done the easiest way, and then put the magnets in and finish this off.
Hey folks, just a reminder about our sponsor, Maritime Knife Supply. They have everything you need from steel all the way to abrasives, you name it. So go check out Maritime Knife Supply. Links down in the description.
So a bit more about the mag chuck. Of course we're going to need magnets. So this is something I didn't show at the beginning, but these are these rare earth magnets. These ones, like all the other parts, are linked down in the description, but these are 50 millimeters by 10 millimeters by 5. And that's the size you want because they're exactly the right size for a 2-inch piece of aluminum. There'll be a little bit extra space hanging out on either side, but that's just fine. We're going to fill that with epoxy. So for a 12-inch chuck, we would use 16 of these. Okay, and what the link that I've given you is for 16 of these. For the 18-inch chuck, of course, we're going to use 24. So how are we going to get the slots here? We're going to use a 7/16 end mill, okay, which is 0.4375 inches, which is a little wider than these, but it's easier than trying to use a small mill and then going back and forth. This way we only have to do one cut for each one. And it's much quicker. There's just a little bit extra and we'll fill that full of epoxy anyway. So I'm also trying to speed up this process. So 7/16 end mill, we're going to do it every 30 thousandths. So every 30 thousandths there'll be one with 30 thousandths on either end. This will make more sense when you see it. As for a depth, these are going to be 20 thousandths deep, and that'll give us about just a half a millimeter or whatever above this. We do want these to be recessed just a little bit. We don't want them flush with the top of the chuck. All right, let's go to the mill. We're going to mill all these out, and then we'll come back and glue these in. Okay, I've got the aluminum chucked up in my vise in the mill here. I've got a 7/16 end mill. I'm just going to touch off the side so that I have a 0, and then I'm going to move it over so I got 30 thousandths before my first cut starts, and then I'll be able to just keep moving over 30 thousandths each time. All right, I've also got this set to be 20 thousandths in depth, so we're ready to go. So we've got the slots for our magnets all milled out. They look really good. Next, we're going to drill the holes to fix the mag chuck to this slide rail. I've already marked out the distance from the edge to the hole down here, and then the distance between the holes, so we'd be able to just put this in the mill and drill our holes. So I've drilled the holes. I didn't video it because it's just drilling holes. Now what I'm going to do is this hole is going to get, we're going to take an end mill and take out this piece to make it more of a channel. And the reason being is we want to be able to remove the middle bolt, and then you can reposition this to do distal tapers. So that's why we want this one to be able to pivot. Now that we've got our holes drilled here, we need to drill through these holes. So we're going to just drill right through, so these will go through. And then for the top, we're just going to taper them with a countersink. And then what we're going to have to do is go to the grinder and put the same taper on this. So grind this to have this taper, just so that they sit flush. Now it's time to actually put the magnets in our magnetic chuck, in our piece of aluminum. So these little magnets, like I said, they will fit perfectly. Okay, taking these out, be careful, you need to slide these out of the package here. Don't lose these little black things, you're going to need them during the installation. So what I like to do is start at one end. I'll put a little drop of CA glue, thin CA glue. This is Starbond CA glue. It's really good stuff. And then I'll take this and I'll drop it in there, keep it centered, but flush against one side. That's where this little thing comes in handy, because you can kind of just wedge it in there. And that's great while this thing is gluing down. Because if you try to take another magnet and you put it here, sometimes, depending on which way you have it, these things are going to stick together. So you want them equally spaced, so you want that black spacer on each side. You're going to be removing this when you go to epoxy them in. Now that we got all the magnets in, I've just taken two scrap pieces of wood that are the same height as the chuck, so 1.5 inches, and I've just clamped them on either side. That's just going to help us get all the epoxy into all the cracks really easily. I'm using 30-minute epoxy. I would recommend at least that. You could use 24, of course, but I would not recommend 5-minute epoxy because it might take you a little bit to get this done. Now we're going to take some acetone and clean off the top, because we really just need the epoxy in the cracks. There, now we're just going to let that set up and our chuck should be done. So our chuck is all done, magnets are all in it. The only thing left is to assemble and test. So the chuck goes like this. So there we go, all assembled. Notice I did use locking nuts instead of I use locking washers instead of lock nuts. This way these things don't spin. I did take an angle grinder cutoff disc and just put a little slot in there in case I needed to hold them with a screwdriver. I also put this 4-inch, half-inch bolt through this. I just put a little rubber stopper, just some piece of rubber that I happen to have, and this will help it so you'll have a stop point and handle. Let's put it on the grinder and see what we have. So one note, I've put these like this because my grinder flips horizontal and I want to be able to just go back and forth here. If your grinder doesn't go horizontal, instead of putting these like this, put one down here so that this is tilted like this. That way you can go on an angle, okay, and you don't have to go straight up and down. Just a little tip there to get that to work. But because it doesn't matter what angle this plate is on, because this is round, it's just easier. My old grinder didn't go horizontal, so I found it easier just to go at an angle here. But let's put it horizontal. We're going to slide the chuck in. All right, look at that. Okay, this isn't bolted in here. There we go. It looks really smooth. And then, whoops, let's lock the grinder. And then it's got the stop here, so you can't go too far. Look at that. And then, of course, this will go in and out. That's a good initial little test, is to see how even you are. And you'll notice I can get it right. Okay, so it's touching here just a little bit more, but probably within, yeah, so I've got it, so it touches about half. What you can do is loosen these bolts a little bit and just give it a little play, and because there will be a tiny little play in these bolts, and you could probably take that out. So let me do that. So I've adjusted it and it's running just about perfect, because now there's just a tiny bit here. So now what I'm going to do is I've got a 240 belt on here. I'm just going to run that, and that should take off just a tiny bit from this side and make it perfectly true. And that's one reason why you want the aluminum to be a little proud of the magnet, so you can adjust this a little bit. I think I've got it perfect now. Now we're going to try it on a piece of steel. So what I've got here is a piece of precision ground 416 stainless. So what I'm going to do is put a 120 belt in here. I'm going to put this on here, since I know this is precision ground to 1/8 inch. I am going to grind it until I get all the grind marks from the belt on there, just to make sure it's all nice and ground, and then we're going to measure it with calipers. And the magnet is really strong. This is not going anywhere. Okay, here we go. This is a brand new belt. I've got precision ground 416. Let's give it a little grind. Okay, it's definitely ground the whole way. Now let's go down to the table, take some calipers, and check it out. All right, let's check how we did. I'm going to take 3 measurements across the edge, because that'll tell us bottom to top as well. 112. Well, you guys can't quite see that. 112. Oh, let's see. The top one's a little off. 115. 112. 115, 113. Let's take this one again. Yeah, 115. So that might also be the wheel, but we're within 2 thousandths between this edge and this edge. So that's really, really good. This is a 12-inch piece. So I'm totally happy with that, being within a couple of thousandths all the way across. So that's pretty flat. And if you were wondering about just the metal dust, I just take a cloth and just do this. And it comes right off. And you can just do this before you put a piece down, and then run your finger across that.
Well, folks, I hope you found this surface grinding attachment build useful. It's one of those tools that I use on almost every build. So if you don't have one, this is a great build to do. I'm going to be selling, like I said, the mag chucks on my website. The link is up here and also always down in the video description. If it says back ordered, that means I will make them on demand. If I actually have some, they'll be for sale up there. So if you want to build this, but you don't have a mill, go grab a mag chuck. Thanks, folks. We'll see you on the next one.